Welcome back to Bedtime Myths and Mysteries, where the stories you thought you knew begin to change. Because some tales were never meant to comfort. They were meant to warn, and few warnings have survived as long or as quietly as the story of Little Red Riding Hood. At first glance, it feels harmless. A girl, a forest, a wolf. A simple journey gone wrong. But like many stories passed from one generation to the next, its edges have been softened, its meaning reshaped, because the version we tell today is not the one people once whispered by firelight. To understand the story, we have to return to a time when the forest was not a place of imagination, but a place of very real fear. The world of early modern Europe was not separated from nature in the way we are now. Villages sat at the edge of vast, unbroken wilderness. Dense forests stretched for miles, swallowing light, sound, and sometimes people. There were no street lamps, no clear paths, no guarantee of safety once you stepped beyond the last house. And within those forests, something waited. Wolves were not the distant, romanticized animals we imagine today. They were a constant and documented threat. In parts of France and Germany, records speak of attacks not just on livestock, but on people. Children especially were vulnerable. Small, quiet, easily separated from the safety of home. And when a child disappeared, the explanation was often simple. The forest had taken them. But wolves were only part of the fear. Because in the minds of those who lived at the forest's edge, danger did not always wear fur and teeth. There were stories of men who moved like animals, of figures who could blend into the trees, watching, waiting. During periods of hysteria and belief in the supernatural, these figures were given a name: werewolves. In the 16th and 17th centuries, Europe saw a wave of trials accusing individuals of transforming into wolves. Confessions were extracted, stories recorded, and fear spread. Whether these individuals were killers, scapegoats, or victims of something misunderstood, the effect was the same. The line between man and monster began to blur. And in that blurred space, the story of the wolf became something far more unsettling. The earliest versions of Little Red Riding Hood were not written for children. They were cautionary tales, passed orally, shaped by real dangers. In some of these early tellings, there is no rescue, no woodcutter, no second chance. The girl meets the wolf, and that is where the story ends. In one particularly disturbing version, the wolf does not simply eat the grandmother. Watch.
Come join me for dinner.
Oh, Granny, what a big mouth you have!
He deceives the girl into consuming parts of her without knowing.
All
Flesh,
the better
blood.
to eat you with.
A ritual
my
of
dear.
manipulation disguised as normality. By the time the truth is revealed, it is already too late. This was not just a story about animals. It was a warning about trust, about strangers, about the danger of those who appear familiar but are not what they seem. The wolf could speak. It could reason. It could pretend. And that made it far more dangerous than something that simply attacked. When Charles Perrault recorded the tale in the 17th century, he did not soften it. His version ends with the girl being eaten, followed by a clear moral. A warning to young women about men who might appear charming but intend harm. The wolf in this telling is unmistakably human in its symbolism. Later, the brothers Grimm would adapt the story into something more familiar. They introduce the rescue. The woodcutter who arrives just in time. The second chance that allows the story to end, not in tragedy, but in relief. And in doing so, they transformed a warning into a lesson. But even in its softened form, the structure remains. A journey into the unknown. A meeting with something that should not be trusted. A moment where curiosity overrides caution. These elements did not come from imagination alone. They came from lived experience. There is another layer to the story that is often overlooked. The red cloak itself. In modern retellings, it is simply a visual detail, a way to make the character recognizable. But in earlier interpretations, red carried meaning. It symbolized transition, maturity, vulnerability. The girl is not just a child, she is someone on the edge of becoming something else. And that is where the story becomes even more unsettling. Because it is not just about being lost in the woods. It is about crossing a boundary, leaving safety behind, entering a world where the rules are no longer clear. In many ways, Little Red Riding Hood is not a story about what happens in the forest. It is about what happens when someone is no longer protected by the structures around them. When they are alone. When they must decide who to trust. And perhaps that is why the story has endured. Not because of the wolf, but because of what the wolf represents. Something that watches. Something that waits. Something that understands just enough about us to get close. Even today, the fear has not entirely disappeared. It has only changed form. The forests may be smaller, the wolves less common. But the idea of something hidden beneath familiarity remains. Because the most dangerous thing in the story was never the teeth. It was the conversation. The moment the girl stopped walking and started listening. And that is what makes the tale linger. Not the chase.
It's okay
not
now.
the ending. But the quiet
take you
moment before it all goes wrong. So the next time you hear the story told as something gentle, something safe, remember where it came from. A world where the danger was real, where the forest did not forgive mistakes, and where sometimes the wolf was never a wolf at all. If you enjoyed this journey into the darker origins of the stories we think we know, don't forget to like, subscribe, and return again to Bedtime Myths and Mysteries, where the past is rarely as simple as it seems.